spoke with someone who will be in the nation's capital during all of it, Democrat Congress member from California's 17th District, Representative Khanna. You know, you are someone who's out there really articulating the vision for the future of this party. So I think we should start with something that we saw happen this election, which was the economy be the #1 issue and Democrats really eroding support with working class voters. You're what people call a progressive capitalist. You have a vision for this. How can Democrats better articulate both on the policy and the message of the economy to voters?
Well, our top mission has to be to tackle the inequality of a modern economy. The reality is you have a district like mine in Silicon Valley that has $12 trillion of wealth, Apple, Google, Intel, Yahoo, Tesla, and yet you have parts of California that are stagnating, where people can't buy a house, where they can't buy a car, where there are not enough good-paying jobs. We need a vision, I call it a new economic deal, to bring new industry, new technology, new investment across this country to revitalize places. And then we need to raise the minimum wage, and we need to give workers a share in the profits of companies. And so my view is that we need a holistic approach to bringing up people who've been left out in a modern economy.
And I don't want to get too much into the coulda, woulda, shoulda, but it feels like some of those elements that you're sketching out are the kinds of things that make it into a lot of stump speeches. Where do you think it fell flat with voters? Why do they not feel like they're hearing what it is that you're saying for the future?
Well, I think we didn't acknowledge their anger. We didn't acknowledge how many people are struggling who are not part of the working and middle class. We didn't have a sweeping vision of how we're going to build new industry, new economic revitalization of communities. We didn't have talk enough about raising the minimum wage and our fight for it. Didn't talk enough about Medicare for all and expanding health care for people who were suffering with too high health care costs. So it just was not bold and detailed enough.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting theories of the case for Democrats and for President Biden this past election season, and then by implication VP Harris, was that Democrats are the party of safeguarding democracy, institution, and norms. And as you know, President Biden just pardoned his son Hunter after saying he wouldn't do that. And now it's opened up a door for Republicans on the other side to say, see, it's been politics all along. These guys are not in any way the party of democracy. Does that increase a degree of difficulty for Democrats moving forward in terms of messaging around norms and institutions, and also the way you're going to govern now in D.C.?
Well, we should not have done it. I mean, the president shouldn't have done it. He should be for curtailing the pardon power. I had said from day one, Biden should be for limiting the pardon power, which is an archaic power. And the Democrats have to be the party of reform, not just in limiting the pardon power, but also not taking PAC money. I'm one of the members of Congress who doesn't take PAC money and started the No PAC caucus, making sure that we're getting rid of billionaires funding these elections, making sure we're stopping members of Congress trading stock. I mean, we need a reform agenda to win back people's trust.
When you talk about reform, there are some within the party who say there's a degree to which the party needs to reform itself when it comes to identity politics, that in some way the party is policing itself out of opportunities to communicate in places with people that Republicans are largely freed of, because within the Republican Party, they don't tell them to write each other off if they say the wrong thing or use the wrong term. We saw Senator-elect Gallego in Arizona say the term Latinx is a problem. People don't talk like that. If you use that term, people write you off. And then we can't just go out there and prosecute the case in places like podcasts or networks. And you're someone who does this. You go out there, you go on Megyn Kelly, you go to all these places and hold that space. Just talk about if Democrats should turn that around and how Democrats can without then offending some people that are a core part of the constituency.
Well, first of all, we need to start with America. What is our vision for America? How are we going to be the world's best manufacturer? How are we going to be the world's biggest innovator? How are we going to be the world's greatest power? How are we going to make sure people have economic security and stability, and we bring back communities that were hollowed out and decimated because politicians sold jobs offshore and took away people's means of making a living? And I think when we have that broader vision, then people will respond to that. And, of course, we want to make sure that every person has a chance to participate in that country and economy. Democrats are the party that believes that we respect the dignity of everyone, the freedom of everyone, that it is having people of different backgrounds that makes us so innovative and strong and incredible nation. But we need to start with our vision of America and then how everyone fits into that larger mosaic.
And when you think about that, though, I mean, it's an idea that it's almost economic populism in a way, because you say that if we take care of people on an economic level, give them dignity of work, give them money, they will eventually be able to participate in a way that makes them feel equal. But there is still this conversation on the policing of language, right? And that becomes something like, for instance, people say there are lots of reasons why VP Harris didn't go on Joe Rogan's podcast. But for some Democrats said going on Joe Rogan's podcast implicitly validates some of the outlandish views in their eyes that a guy like that has had. And it makes it difficult for Democrats to get a diminishing space realm of sort of influence versus Republicans who can then, their permission structure allows them to take as much space as possible. Is there a way to turn that around within the Democratic DNA?
Well, I just disagree with people who say that you shouldn't go talk to Joe Rogan or shouldn't talk to people who you disagree with. We need to be talking to everyone, engaging in honest conversation. I assume if someone is deeply off the reservation, espousing total racism or bigotry or hate, fine, that you don't go on that platform. But certainly Joe Rogan doesn't qualify for that. And there are going to be people who you disagree with, who may even have views that make you uncomfortable, who have views that may not accord with your moral convictions. But you have to engage. We're the party of free exchange of ideas.
Yeah, and on that front, you've recently encouraged progressives and Democrats not to migrate from X to other places for their social media consumption. I mean, this platform, Blue Sky, has become a place where almost feels like some Democrats say, well, we might be siloing ourselves in this way. You say X is a place to stay. But, of course, there's the ownership, Elon Musk, a person with whom you have a relationship. But folks look at the ownership, look at the algorithms, look at Elon Musk's relationship now to President-elect Trump, and they worry ultimately about investing in a platform that may in some way feed them information that at some point may color them their mindset unintentionally. What's the argument that you make for why they should stay on X and not worry about those concerns?
Well, I have no problem with people starting Blue Sky accounts. Great. Have more platforms. That's terrific. But you don't want to have everyone segregate themselves into just bubbles where they're communicating only with like-minded individuals. On X, people will be able to engage. I engaged with Elon just today. He tweeted back at something I had said about the defense cuts and also about what I had said about Tesla. And so you want to engage with people who may have a disagreement. That's what democracy is all about. And fine, let's have alternative platforms, but let's not disengage in persuasion.
Yeah, I think it's an important point to keep on having these exchanges of ideas at the very least. And before I let you go, I mean, you represent this district where so many of these big tech companies are located in Silicon Valley. And there's a lot of conversation about what happens to these companies in this new administration. You have a new FCC chair coming in saying that he does not like the way Section 230 is interpreted, which gives these big tech companies sort of immunity from liability about content moderation, right? But then on the other hand, you have a conversation about an FCC and a DOJ that might allow more mergers and acquisitions for these big tech companies. How do you see it playing out for these folks who are largely your constituents?
Well, we need a balance. One of the things we need is the Kids Online Safety Act. Let's protect our young people from getting addicted online, from having suicidal thoughts, from getting information about eating disorders. That's low-hanging fruit. Let's make sure that we're protecting people's privacy and their data so that they aren't being subject to manipulation from these companies. And let's make sure there are many platforms that people can go on and that they can take their information from one platform to the next. I called for an Internet Bill of Rights back in 2017 with Tim Berners-Lee, and that's more urgent and needed now than ever before.